I heard something from someone. I want to say probably like maybe like last year, and it was it was a conversation about nutrition. And I had a really long phase of like eating bad and not sleeping well, having kids and stuff like that, which kind of knocked off my routine. And I had a pretty set regiment routine playing football. Like you sleep X amount of time, you work out X amount of time, you recover this amount of time. Militant for years. You throw in some kids, that quickly goes away. And what's hard about being a football player is like my coach always said, he always said like, do you know, I want you to answer this too. See if you know the answer. Do you know, do you know when you'll feel the best during the season?
At the beginning.
Yeah. He always said, the best you feel, he said, the best you feel is the first day of camp. After that, it's all downhill. So during my most of my life, I got used to feeling bad because I was always hurt, always dealing with some kind of pain, always tired. You know what I'm saying? So I was used to being not feeling good, but not feeling good felt right because that was the profession that I was in, right? And once I was done playing football, when I was playing football, I can eat whatever I wanted because I was burning hella calories and I was always working out. So it kind of like balances stuff out. Once I was done playing, it was like I was eating whatever I wanted and I started to feel bad, but it was normal because I always felt bad. That makes sense? So when I started to take my health seriously, when my daughters got a little bit older, I got a nutritionist and whatever. And I started like learning about my body, how the body actually works when you're not a gladiator in an arena, like knocking each other's heads off all the time. And I started to like take certain like green supplements and started like learning how to eat correctly and start managing my sleep better and understanding learning about sleep cycles and like learning about certain foods that work for me or don't work for me. Start learning about like um going on morning walks, like all these different things. And even like the biggest thing was like bowel movements, like knowing that like you should be going to the bathroom, like a healthy gut, they say, is like twice a day. I didn't know that. Where in my life, that never was the case for me. It was always like every other day or every like 3-4 days when I was going to the bathroom. And I started taking care of myself and I started going to the bathroom every day. I would like sleep all the way through the night. I would feel energized in the morning. I felt sleepy at the right time during the day. And I remember texting my nutritionist like, damn, like I feel so good. I feel so good. I've never felt like this in my life. And she said, yeah, it's crazy. Like most people don't understand this. And she said, you never know you feel bad until you start feeling good. And when she told me that, that shit hit me like in my gut. I was like, damn, that is a bar. Like I finally feel good. And now I know what it's like to feel good. I always want to feel like this now. So now you put there's a standard for yourself when you know how to there's another side to this thing. And I think that's just such a good life lesson in general. Like how do we know when we feel good? Right? Like if you're in a relationship, for example, how do you know if you're being treated right or if you're being treated good? Like if you saw a bad relationship growing up and you're in a bad relationship, it's all you know. So that might you might confuse feeling good to what feels normal, right? So this happens all the time where I'm from. It's like you live up in a home where there's an abusive relationship, and you grow up and you find you're attracted to somebody who is abusive, right? Verbally, physically, whatever, and that's normal to you. So in some regard, it feels good because it's like comfortable. And then you get into a relationship later where this man or woman is treating you really well. You're like, oh my God, I had no idea there was another side to this thing to feel good in this relationship. And like, that's just something that I think we all can ask ourselves in all the different like roles or pillars in our life. So when I think about, let's talk about relationships for a little bit, right? So in my marriage, me and Charlotte came from two different places. Obviously, I'm from LA. She's from Minnesota. There's ways that we did things in our relationship that made neither one of us feel good based on how we maybe talk to each other or maybe how we may have did a certain thing, and it didn't feel good. And we didn't know any better if it made us feel good or feel bad. It was just like, no, this is just what it is. This is who she is. This is who I am. And it's cool. Like, we didn't talk about it. Years go on as you're together and you start to recognize, like, hey, I actually don't like that. I don't appreciate that. It doesn't make me feel good. And if you're in that for so long, at some point it's going to break. Like, you're going to break. And me and Charlotte got to that point where we were about to break. So I was like, all right, like, or we were like, all right, like, we need to see somebody. You know what I'm saying? Like, we need to go talk to somebody because I'm fed up, you fed up, but we love each other and we want to be with each other. But we also know this ain't good. Like, this ain't good for us. So we sought out help and we went to therapy and we're going for some time. And we actually started with like there was times I look at Charlotte like, who the hell are you? Like, damn, I didn't know this about you, or I didn't know this is why you react that way. And vice versa. It's like, oh wow, I didn't know that thing from your childhood or your past made you that way. I understand now. I don't know. I want to work with you on that. And just hearing that made me feel good because I felt seen in something that I probably haven't expressed out loud to her. She acknowledged that thing, and then she gave me grace within that thing because she knows I'm going to work on it, and same thing on her end. And I remember, going to therapy for some time, and then I remember telling my therapist, I think I remember telling you at some point, like, damn, bro, like, I think when people think of marriage in like this like awe feeling of like love and bliss, I'm like, I think this is that feeling. I remember I feel so damn good with Charlotte. Like, I just feel like she's like my homie, but she's also like my wife. She's also like my whiteboard when I gotta throw something up there and just brainstorm or whatever. Like, she's like my everything, and that feels so good. But also knowing that we still have work to do. So me and my Charlotte were together for how long? Like 8 years probably. No, 8, 9 years together before we saw any help. So for 8, 9 years, we thought we felt good. And we did feel good at some point. We were young in college, going to football games, NFL. Like, we felt good, like all that surface level stuff. But when it came to who we are at the core and who we want to be for each other, the kind of family that we want to have, the kind of marriage partners we want to be, that's the stuff that we weren't working on. And that's the stuff that eventually came up when all the service level stuff started to trickle away, like the NFL and the football and the going out and all that stuff. And when we started to do the work and we saw, wow, this feels really good to like know each other on this level. How do we maintain this? And it all comes from looking at each other, looking at ourselves, and figuring out, what are we doing now that makes us feel good? And what were we doing before to make us feel bad? And when we are in either one of these seasons, knowing that we're in a season of feeling good, at some point it probably can go bad. But what are we doing here to make us feel good? When we're in a really bad spot, what are the things that we do when we're feeling good to get us back out of this hard place? And we literally just went through that. Like, I swear to God, like, I think like 2 weeks ago, me and Char were just like at each other's throats, just in a tough part of marriage. And I was like, I'm sick of this. I'm sick of going through this. And I'm in the room folding clothes. I said, Charlotte, come here. And she comes here. She's like, yeah. I was like, what do you need from me? Like, what do you think is going on? Like what's wrong? I was like, we're not vibing with each other. We're not really talking. Like, all these things. Like, what's wrong? What do you think we need to do? She's like, I don't know. I feel like we gotta just like vibe more. And then she started laughing. I was like, no, I'm not vibing with you, bro. Like, I'm just not messing with you right now. Like, I'm just so frustrated and whatever. It's like, no, but I think we need to like vibe more seriously, just like talk and like hang out, because we just went through a hard 3 weeks. We just need to talk more. And I thought about it. I was like, maybe she's right. So saying good morning and good night and saying goodbye and kissing her goodbye, those little bitty things, little reminders of like, hey, I'm with you and I love you. Now we're in this really good season again. And it was super easy to get back because that saying goodbye and good morning and whatever was what I was doing when we felt good. So I just brought that over to the bad, and it got us out of that a lot faster. Because we're always going to go back and forth between not feeling good and feeling good. You know what I mean? Like the hard seasons and the good seasons. But it's about remembering the tools that we had with each of those seasons. And to go back to what I wanted to talk about is like, you don't know you feel bad until you start feeling good. I think marriage and relationships is a beautiful example of that, because like the honeymoon phase, for example, like you feel great because it's exciting and it's new. This person's all into you and whatever. And then soon as one red flag happens, you're like, oh, hell nah, this is bad. Abort mission. And it's like, well, no, like, why? You know what I'm saying? Where is that coming from? So, but at the same time, relationships can get a little bit hazy with this specific topic because there's so many layers within like trying to become one with another person. I think another, do you have anything for me so far?
Well, yeah, I was just gonna say, I think the one thing that'd be interesting too to mention is I think that feeling good and feeling comfortable can sometimes get like misconstrued.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like even if you use relationships, it's like, well, I feel comfortable. Like if you're in your dating life, to say like I feel comfortable just being at home. Like I don't want to go out and meet people because maybe I'm introverted and that feels like uncomfortable. So I feel good being at my house, or I feel good in an argument to be right or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
When I feel like the type of good you're talking about, it takes discomfort in order to get to that good.
Yeah, no, that's actually a really, really good point, because I think one of the things that I've always been pretty good about was like, it's a complacency, because complacency is a comfortable place, and complacency can get dangerous because when you're complacent, it means that you've gotten somewhere and you're okay with that, and maybe you don't want to go farther because it's hard, right? Complacent people are typically people who have some kind of like accolades or achievement in whatever, how, no matter how big or how small the thing is, you've gotten better at something to where now you're there and you're complacent, and to get to the next thing it's really difficult, so you don't want to do the thing. And I think that when you feel good, feeling good, it has a lot to do with complacency too. You know what I mean? So I think you make a really good point. Like comfortability is it can be a really dangerous thing, especially depending on the subject matter as to what you're comfortable with. So for me, like what are some other examples of like you don't know you don't know what feeling, you don't know how bad you felt until you start feeling good. Like I wrote something down here. Like I guess so I have family here, and I think what I wrote that down because like I mean at the end of the day it's still relationships. Like I've gotten into it with my folks and my siblings, and like you think you are all right, you know what I'm saying? You're going through like man, when I got to the league, like me and my mom didn't talk for like 2 years because of some stuff that happened. And I thought I was cool. Like I went about my life and like did my thing. Didn't really think about her when I know damn well I was. You know, I'm playing in the NFL and like I'm not talking to her and whatever. And then it wasn't until I actually started talking to her again, you know, X amount of years later, where like this new light and joy in my life came back. That like this pop came back into me that I didn't know I was missing. And then all of a sudden I just felt really good all the time. So what I learned in that is like, well, I actually need my mom. Like I need to talk to her because she is my mother and she does love me. And we had I ain't gonna say a misunderstanding, but we had a complicated thing happen in our relationship that we need to work through in order for us to both be healthy because we love each other. I mean, is there something to say about like, oh wow, I guess I never thought about this, but maybe feeling good, like you don't know how bad you feel until you feel good. Maybe that's something there's also something to be said about letting some things go to actually feel good. Let's use the workplace for example again. Like if you're at a job that isn't a dream job, but you need money, you're working this job for money because I mean, everybody needs money, like, but you got to keep the lights on and whatever. And oh, I don't want to go down that road because I was going to use like a really dark example. Like, I'm going to say this. So let's say, for example, well, I'm going to talk to you about it first because I'm thinking about like I watch Soft White Underbelly a lot. And for those who don't know what software underbelly is on YouTube, you should definitely check it out. But I look at a lot of like pimps and prostitutes and strippers and like all of like the really gruesome like um
Well, you look at their
workers.
stories.
Yeah, stories,
Okay.
sure.
Yeah.
Um and when you see them, they're not feeling good. They feel terrible. But they're in a mode of survival. They have to do this. Well, I ain't gonna speak for the pimps, but I'll speak for like the prostitutes and strippers and people, drug addicts, people like that. And it's like, man, if you let this thing go, you will feel so much better if you just let it go. But there's layers to letting the things go. Like addiction and survival are two of the hardest things to ever deal with. You know what I mean? Any kind of addiction, any kind of like being in the zone of like surviving. You know what I'm saying? And I almost feel like I don't have the credibility to speak about this because those things are so deep, and I would say I haven't had to overcome anything like that hard to feel good again. And it's easy for me to be like, if you just let that go, you'll feel so good, you know. So maybe I can bring somebody on here who's overcome something like that to talk about it, because I don't feel like I have what it takes to tell somebody like that what they did to feel good after they felt bad for so long. You know what I mean? When I watch the stories on Software Underbelly of the people who were, you know, successful in overcoming the addiction or stopping being a prostitute and whatever, you just see the difference in like their skin, for crying out loud, in their way they talk, everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I just think about all these things, and I think like it's almost like the reward is what's driving them, don't you think? Over like what they're leaving.
Yeah. I mean, like, I think when it comes to addiction, it's
Like, okay, I'll just really quick say, like, go back to your like your relationship. It's like, well, you don't feel good, so you're thinking about what makes you feel better,
mm-hmm,
not necessarily letting go of the bad stuff.
mm-hmm.
You're more focused on like the good stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Are you saying like the people who are on the other side probably aren't thinking about that
Yeah,
good
like you were
stuff?
mentioning, like, oh, I should find someone that's let something go in order to like get to the good, to feeling good.
Mm.
And I'm just saying, I don't even know if that's a thing. Like, I just think everyone who's in that place is like, at some point I just have to get to the, I need to feel good.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yes. See, and even like having like that answer makes me think like why I want to talk to somebody to like know that processing, because I can say in my own life I haven't really thought of it that way. I feel like I've always been like blessed with like I've never had to like process something of the magnitude of like, you know, addiction and stuff like that. And I feel like I've always been blessed to see both sides of a lot of things. Like I lived in the big city, I lived in a deserted town. I had money at one point, I didn't have money at one point. I've been with like black women and I've been in interracial relationships. I've seen two sides of a lot of things in my life, and that's why I think I have such a good perspective, and that's why I don't really judge people, because I can see both sides of like almost any story. But I think with something like that, that's something I have not experienced. And I think it'd be good for me to talk to somebody who has experienced something like that and see what I can learn from them. Because I think, you know, growing up, you see like, I saw like homeless people and like panhandlers and drug addicts on the streets all the time. And, when I was young, you would hear adults say like, just get a job or like, just stop smoking and whatever. And as a kid, I used to be like, man, if it's really that easy, like they should just do it. As you get older, it's like, it's not that damn easy. Like it's really, really hard. And you don't know what these people have been through. That's why I love Software Underbelly, because Mark asks the same questions all the time. Like, what was your childhood like? You have mom and dad? That's the first question he asks everybody, because he understands that it comes from the root. You know what I mean? So like, yeah, all I have to say, I think is talking to somebody in that world would be like really, really good for me to have that conversation. But all in all, I think that like when I heard Jess say that like a year ago, like you don't know you don't know how bad you feel until you start feeling good. I think it's just a good thing a good model to take into life when you don't feel good. Like, all right, like, or I guess you don't. I guess if you feel bad or whatever, like I said in the beginning, and you don't know you feel bad, it's like, well, I guess that's one thing. Like, how does somebody know if they don't feel good? Because I didn't really know until I started feeling good that I felt bad. And I guess the only thing that I did was like, well, that's not true. Because like, if I wasn't sleeping good and like wasn't having like the bowel movements or whatever every day, like, and I found out about like you're supposed to do it every day, it's like, okay, like I'm doing something. If that's what's supposed to happen, something needs to be fixed. So I think it just comes with like action on like fixing a problem within your life. And then maybe by you fixing that problem, you recognize that, oh, wow, like I feel a lot better by doing this thing that I didn't know was a problem or that was making me feel bad. So what am I saying? Like, it comes with like solving a problem that you may have, or is it like looking at things that you want to get better at, or maybe it's all of those things? And what are you hearing?
I mean, what if it's maybe it's just not even being complacent? Like it's almost like it seems like you're like testing to find out what is good.
That's actually a fact, because that's like all I'm ever doing. It's like I'm always like, okay, like I can get a little bit better at this, or like they say if you do, like, I heard it, if you did this, you get better at this. Like, all right, bet. Like, let me just try it and see. Like, I'm all about like trying to like level up here. And I think with that mindset, it allows me to see, to grow, and then recognize, oh damn, I actually feel a lot better that I do this now. Like my body feels a lot better, my marriage feels a lot better, my relationship with my kids feels a lot better, work feels a lot better. Let's talk about like routines, right? Like a morning routine. Like I recently found out like there's like this study that it's like really hard for people to get up in the morning for whatever reason. And to me, it's like, well, I want to get up in the morning. I'm gonna start getting up in the morning just at like the spur of the moment, like F it. But I feel terrible. Why do I feel terrible? Well, in order for me to like feel good in the morning, I gotta make sure I'm getting a lot of sleep. Oh, what time am I going to bed every night? If I'm going up at 5 and I go to bed at 12, I'm only getting 5 hours of sleep. Oh, that's why I feel terrible. So now let me go to bed at 9:30, and now I get 7 to 8 hours of sleep. Do that for some time. Now I feel great in the morning. So I just solved this. I tested this thing, and now I'm solving this problem, and now I feel really good for this thing that I want to do. You see what I'm saying? So I guess you are right. I think it's like testing things out and seeing if that thing actually makes you feel good. And I think there's huge layers to this that aren't just like with self. Like we talked about marriage and stuff. But I think it does come with like, I guess not being complacent and just trying things. I mean, we have like all this information to get better essentially. And maybe it's just trying those things. But if you listen to the last podcast that I was talking about, everybody has an answer. I think this is a good one to listen to with that based on what I'm saying right now. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah. I think one way to know how you feel your best is comparing yourself to those who are in the same field as you, right? So when I play football, it's like, all right, like we test like speed and strength and agility and all these things. And when we test them, I can compare my numbers to theirs, because a higher number means I feel good or I feel better because I'm performing at a higher level. That's what feeling good means in that context. And I think for me, when you look at just like regular life outside of football, it's like, all right, well, I see you every day. And if you run and work out every day like I do, then if I'm feeling crappy, but you feel good, what are you doing? I'm going to ask you, I'm going to apply it to myself and see if that helps me. That makes sense so far?
Mm-hmm.
So I think the best way to know if you feel good is and this can get kind of dangerous, but compare yourself to those who are of the same mindset in life as you, and seeing who is performing their best, or who is performing better. You know what I'm saying? Because that's the only way it really works. If you think about it, it's like you got to compare yourself to something. You got to compare yourself to something. It can't just be you and basing your answers off of you.
To some extent.
Yeah, no,
like
when you think about it, that's actually exactly what it is. Like we're constantly comparing ourselves all the time because we're always trying to get better or be better than the next person. This is how we operate. You know what I'm saying? So I'll cut you off though. What are you
no, I
gonna
was
say?
gonna say, but like if I feel good, then I feel good.
Yeah.
At some point, I'm like, I think it's good to like compare yourself and be like, well, if I feel bad, but that person feels good, what can I be doing to like make myself feel good based off of maybe some of the things like you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
But if I feel good, I don't need to compare myself to what you're at.
But where do you base yourself off of feeling good? Like, how do you base your feeling goodness?
Well, don't you think at some point, I think that's like an internal thing.
Yeah.
Like it's all subjective to some extent.
I think it's subjective to some extent, yes. But I think it's also like the proof is in the pudding. You know what I mean? Like, oh, this can get so deep because feeling good can all be based on just like emotion and like how you feel about yourself when like you just don't probably feel good. Yeah, this could just go down a whole other thing because like I was listening to Jordan Peterson's a video of him a couple of days ago. He was talking about when he was in his clinical psychology, clinical stuff. He met with an anorexic woman, and the anorexic woman was like she didn't feel good in her body. And what he did is he drew like lines of his leg, of his thigh, like the width of it, and then drew it next to hers and compared them. He said, he asked her like, whose leg is bigger? And she had a hard time deciding. Like she wasn't going to say that it was his because in her mind, it's her leg that's bigger, and that makes her feel good. So it's like, but you don't feel good, you're not eating. You see what I'm saying? So like, yeah, this got like super deep out of nowhere. But like, yeah, like we got to bring Jordan Peterson on here to talk to him or something because like that. Because when you really think about it at a really, really deep level in that way, that's what it really comes down to. When you think about it, it's like, no, it's all about like what you think and where you're getting the validation from. Is it from yourself? Is it from somebody else? But I think there is like, again, I think there is something to take away from what I'm trying to get at is like, when I first started this, it was about my nutritionist helping me. And I'm saying, I took action to take care of my health. I started to feel good. I said, damn, I feel really good. And she said, yeah, people don't know how bad they feel until they start to feel good. And I think that's a good principle to have in life. I think it's a good starting place to have in life with what problems that you have. You know what I'm saying? And I think you kind of just take that and go from there. But I think if it's like a deeper rooted problem that like is, you know, like a psychological thing, then I think that's something that you have to take up with, you know, somebody else or getting help or speaking to somebody that you trust. So yeah, that's a deep one though. And I think we can talk about that.
One more question.
Yeah.
Would you change up the way that you're saying, like, instead of feel good, it's like how to like be good instead of like putting feelings into it?
Yeah, probably, because I think being good comes with like actual steps into how to actually get to what can probably get you to feel good. That's actually a really good point. Because I think like I had to do the thing in order for me to even know if it'll make me feel good. So to be good takes action. To feel good takes you thinking that, or to hear it from somebody else. Damn, that's good, bro. That's really good. For real. That's really good. Like, that's really good. So I think, yeah. So if I had to rephrase it, it's like people don't know that they feel bad until they do the work to feel good or something. We'll work on that. So, but yeah, that was good. You have anything else for me? Any questions or anything? Okay, great. So if you have any comments or questions about this episode, put them down below, because I think this is maybe a topic that can be expanded in a bunch of different directions. I just think when I initially heard this, I was like, damn, that's a good way to think about my own life and the roles that I played and stuff like that. So yeah, so hope you guys enjoyed that one, and I will see you guys on the next one.